Collision course. The morning alarm blared through Olivia Palmer's apartment with the subtlety of a foghorn. She groaned, slapping at her phone with the precision of someone who had performed this exact maneuver hundreds of times before. The digital numbers glared back accusingly. 6:47 a.m. 13 precious minutes lost to exhaustion. "Sweetheart, we need to move double time today," she called, swinging her legs over the side of the bed and immediately stepping on a forgotten stuffed giraffe. The squeak it emitted was almost judgmental. This was not the morning for delays. Today was the quarterly financial presentation at Meridian Enterprises, where Olivia had spent 3 years being efficiently invisible as a financial analyst. 3 years of arriving early, leaving late, somehow still being referred to as Olive by half the executive floor. A sleepy-eyed 8-year-old appeared in the doorway, dark curls forming a wild halo around her face. "Mom, my science project, ... is packed and by the door." "I finished the display board at midnight," Olivia replied, already halfway into her charcoal pencil skirt. Cereals on the table. Exactly 17 minutes before Mrs. Delgado leaves for school drop-off. Motherhood had taught Olivia efficiency. Single motherhood had made her a logistical savant. By 7:30, she had delivered Emma to her carpool, grabbed coffee from the corner shop, was power walking toward the imposing glass tower that housed Meridian's headquarters. The sky above threatened rain, perfectly matching the knot of anxiety. In her stomach, her phone buzzed with a message from her direct supervisor, Rebecca. "Hayes is attending presentation. Full board present. Bring extra copies of Q3 projections." Olivia nearly tripped mid-stride. Jackson Hayes, the notoriously demanding CEO of Meridian, rarely attended departmental presentations. His presence was like a financial comet, dramatic, rare, potentially catastrophic for anyone unprepared. The first drops of rain began to fall as Olivia ducked into the building, her mind racing through the presentation materials she'd prepared. Did she have the updated consumer data? Would her analysis of the Eastern market expansion hold up to scrutiny? She juggled her coffee, purse, and tablet as she made her way to the elevator, joining the morning crush of suits and screens. By the time she reached the 37th floor, the sky had opened up completely, rain lashing against the floor-to-ceiling windows that lined the executive corridor. Olivia hurried toward the copy room, her heels clicking against marble in a rhythm that matched her racing pulse. 42 minutes until presentation, she muttered, feeding paper into the machine. As copy spilled into the tray, she mentally rehearsed her talking points, the small but significant section of the presentation she'd been allotted. 3 minutes to prove her worth. Arms laden with still warm paper, Olivia rushed toward the boardroom. The hallway gleamed with morning rainlight, the polished marble floor reflecting the storm outside. She checked her watch. 30 minutes to spare. Enough time to arrange materials, and her right heel skidded on the wet marble. Papers exploded into the air like rectangular confetti. Olivia's arms pinwheeled as gravity claimed her, the world tilting sideways in slow motion. Instead of the hard floor, however, she collided with something equally solid but decidedly more human. Strong hands gripped her shoulders, steadying her against a broad chest in what her stunned brain registered as an extremely well-tailored suit. The scent of sandalwood and rain filled her senses as she looked up into the most piercing gray eyes she'd ever encountered. I'm so sorry," she stammered, mortification flooding her cheeks with heat. Jackson Hayes regarded her with an unreadable expression, one eyebrow slightly raised. His dark hair was damp from the rain, giving him a less polished appearance than his usual Forbes cover perfection. "Are you always this dramatic about entering rooms, Ms.?" His voice was deep, with an unexpected hint of amusement. "Palmer, Olivia Palmer, financial analysis? And no, I usually prefer subtler entrances that don't involve assaulting the CEO." To her horror, the words tumbled out before her professional filter could engage. Something that might have been a smile flickered across his face as he released her shoulders and bent to gather the scattered papers. Assaulting is a strong word. "I'd call it an innovative approach to introducing yourself." Olivia dropped to her knees, frantically collecting pages. 3 years at this company, and this is how I finally get noticed. Perfect. 3 years, he handed her a stack of rescue documents. And we haven't met? I'm fairly certain I've been in meetings you've attended, she replied, accepting the papers with a grateful nod. I'm just usually less horizontal, he suggested. Offering his hand to help her up, despite everything, Olivia felt a reluctant laugh escape. I was going to say less conspicuous, but your description works too. As she stood, their eyes met again, and something shifted in his expression. Curiosity, perhaps, or recognition of something unexpected. He glanced at the papers in her hand, the Q3 projections. You're presenting today. A small section on the Eastern market potential, she clarified, trying to regain her professional composure. Hayes nodded thoughtfully. I'll be interested to hear your analysis, Ms. Palmer. He gestured toward the boardroom doors. After you, though perhaps at a more measured pace this time. As Olivia walked into the boardroom, feeling his presence behind her, she couldn't shake. The sensation that her carefully constructed invisibility had just been permanently shattered, for better or worse. Unexpected alliance, 3 weeks after the hallway collision. Olivia found herself in an unfamiliar position, working directly with Jackson Hayes, well past midnight in his corner office. Rain tapped against the floor-to-ceiling windows, creating a cozy percussion that contrasted with the tension of their task. Financial crisis had a way of forcing unlikely partnerships. The Singapore numbers still don't align with projected growth, Jackson said, loosening his tie as he paced before the digital display, where Olivia's analysis glowed in neat rows and columns. We're missing something. Olivia tucked a strand of auburn hair behind her ear, studying the spreadsheet with narrowed eyes. Her presentation that fateful morning had impressed the board, especially when she'd countered the CFO's dismissive questions with data-driven precision. But no one expected the market collapse that followed 2 days later, or that Jackson would personally tap her to join the crisis response team. It's not Singapore, she murmured, more to herself than to him. The disruption is coming from somewhere. Else her fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up a different set of metrics. Here, look at the supply chain interruptions in Malaysia. They're creating a ripple effect that won't show in our standard reports. Jackson moved closer, leaning over her shoulder to examine the screen. How did everyone miss this? Because the system is designed to track direct impacts, not tertiary effects, Olivia explained, ignoring the warmth radiating from his proximity. But if you follow the trail, she highlighted a sequence of seemingly unrelated data points. You can see the pattern. He studied her work in silence, then straightened with newfound energy. We need to restructure our Malaysian partnerships immediately. He reached for his phone, then checked his watch and frowned. It's almost 1 a.m. I didn't realize Olivia's own phone buzzed with a text from her neighbor who was watching Emma. It's fine, she said, gathering her things quickly. Mrs. Hernandez says Emma's sound asleep. Should get home, though. You have a child? Jackson asked, surprise evident in his voice. A daughter, Emma. She's 8. Olivia braced herself for the subtle shift she'd seen countless times. The moment when male executives mentally moved her from the potential fast-tracker category to probably unreliable parent. Instead, Jackson nodded thoughtfully. 8 is a good age. Curious about everything but not yet cynical about the world. When she looked surprised, he added, My sister has kids. I'm the uncle who brings inappropriate gifts and sugar. Something about the image of the stern CEO sneaking candy to children made Olivia smile. Emma would approve. She's currently lobbying. For a pet snake? Excellent taste, he said with unexpected warmth. I had one at her age, terrified my mother's bridge club. The conversation felt dangerously comfortable. Olivia reminded herself of the professional boundaries she'd carefully maintained for years. I should go. Early morning tomorrow. I'll have my driver take you home, Jackson said, already typing a message on his phone. It's not necessary. It's pouring rain. It's the middle of the night. And you've just potentially saved Meridian millions of dollars. Let me ensure you get home safely, Olivia. The use of her first name startled her. In their previous interactions, he'd maintained formal address. The switch felt significant somehow. During the luxurious car ride home, Olivia reflected on how quickly her professional life had transformed. 3 weeks ago, she'd been functionally invisible. Now, she had the CEO's direct number in her contacts. and his personal driver dropping her at her modest apartment building. What she couldn't have known was that Jackson remained in his office long after she left, reviewing her personnel file and wondering why someone with her analytical brilliance had been overlooked for so long, or that when he finally left the office at 3 in the morning, he found himself driving past her neighborhood, slowing near her building with an inexplicable desire to ensure she was safely home. The following weeks brought more late nights, strategy sessions where her input was not only welcomed but sought after. Jackson began asking for her specifically when thorny problems arose, and gradually their professional interactions developed an easy rhythm. He learned to bring ginger tea instead of coffee, which gave her migraines. She discovered his habit of pacing when processing complex information wasn't impatience but concentration. One evening, as they celebrated averting the financial crisis with a quiet toast in his office, Jackson regarded her thoughtfully over the rim of his glass. "Why did you never push for advancement here? Your skills clearly merit senior management." Olivia considered deflecting, then decided on honesty. Single motherhood doesn't align well with corporate ambition. I needed stability, predictable hours. When possible, she shrugged. Being overlooked had its advantages. No one notices when the invisible woman leaves at 5 to pick up her daughter, and now, you're hardly invisible anymore. The question hung between them, layered with implications. Neither was ready to acknowledge. "Now," she said carefully, "I'm recalibrating, finding a new balance." What remained unspoken was how his own balance had shifted. For the first time in years, Jackson found himself thinking about something beyond Meridian's bottom line. Thought about the way Olivia's eyes crinkled when she smiled, how she unconsciously hummed when concentrating, and the fierce intelligence that matched his own. He thought about her daughter, whom he'd never met, but knew loved astronomy and struggled with spelling. Most disturbingly, found himself imagining what it would be like to be part of their lives, not just their careers. Neither realized they were falling until it was too late to brace for impact. Whispers and warnings, the executive dining room fell silent when Jackson Hayes entered with Olivia Palmer at his side. Their heads bent over a tablet as they discussed the upcoming board presentation. 4 months ago, most people wouldn't have recognized her. Her proximity to the CEO made her impossible to ignore. "He actually laughs when she's around," whispered Terrence from marketing to his lunch companion. Hayes. Laughing. I didn't know his face could do that. Across the room, Dominic Warner, chief operating officer and Jackson's longtime friend, observed the pair with troubled eyes. He'd known Jackson since business school, had witnessed his meteoric rise and the personal sacrifices it entailed. Change in his friend was unmistakably, potentially dangerous. "They're just discussing the Asia-Pacific numbers," said Rebecca, Olivia's former supervisor, though her tight smile suggested she found their closeness equally concerning. Her own position had been marginalized as Olivia's star rose. At a corner table, Victoria Huntington delicately cut her salmon into precise squares, her diamond bracelet catching the light with each movement. After a 2-year absence pursuing business interests in Europe, she had returned to find her former lover unusually preoccupied. The woman by his side was pretty in an understated way, but hardly the sophisticated type Jackson typically favored. The fact that he seemed genuinely engaged in their conversation rather than merely tolerating her presence was intriguing. "Tell me about the analyst," Victoria said to Rebecca later that afternoon. Having engineered a casual encounter in the executive lounge, "Olivia, is it? She seems to have made quite an impression." Rebecca, eager to align herself with the formidable Victoria, didn't hesitate. Single mother, been with the company 3 years. Competent enough, but nothing special until she caught Hayes' attention. Now suddenly, she's indispensable. The bitterness in her voice was unmistakable. "Single mother?" Victoria repeated, arching a perfectly shaped eyebrow. "How quaint." Sure, Jackson finds that ... charitable. The rumors intensified over the following weeks. When Olivia was promoted to senior strategic analyst, reporting directly to the executive floor, the whispers grew louder. When Jackson was spotted leaving her building on a Sunday morning, the whispers became a roar. "Mom, why is my picture on this website?" Emma asked one evening, peering at Olivia's laptop screen. Olivia's blood ran cold as she saw the gossip blog Headline: Meridian CEO's new office romance, The Secret Family. The article was speculative trash, but the photos were real Jackson helping Emma with her science project on the balcony of their apartment. Olivia laughing as they attempted to launch a model rocket. Private moments transformed into public consumption. That night, after Emma was asleep, Olivia paced her living room, phone in hand. Things with Jackson had evolved gradually. Naturally, coffee discussions that extended beyond work, weekend texts about books they'd both read. His unexpected appearance at Emma's science fair, when Olivia mentioned she was nervous about public speaking. Their first kiss had been in this very room, tentative and sweet, followed by a more urgent one that left them both breathless. But they'd been careful, private, or so she thought. The knock at her door startled her. Jackson stood in the hallway, his usual composed demeanor fractured with concern. "You've seen it," he said. Not a question. "Emma saw it first," Olivia replied, the fear in her voice unmistakable. "They photographed my child, Jackson." He stepped inside, running a hand through his hair in a rare gesture of frustration. "I've already called legal. They'll have a cease and desist by morning. But the damage is done." She hugged herself, suddenly cold. "This is exactly what I never wanted. Emma doesn't deserve to be collateral damage in some corporate drama." "This isn't just corporate drama, Olivia." Jackson moved toward her, stopping when she stepped back. "This is us. Something real." "Is it?" she challenged quietly. "Because today Victoria Huntington stopped by my office to introduce herself. She mentioned your history together. She described in detail the house in the Hamptons you bought for your future together." Jackson's expression darkened. "Victoria and I ended 2 years ago. The house was sold. It's not the point." Olivia's voice remained low to avoid waking. "Emma, the point is that I suddenly find myself in a soap opera I never auditioned for. People think I slept my way into my promotion. My daughter is being photographed without consent. Your ex-fiancé is marking her territory." "Former girlfriend," he corrected automatically. "We were never engaged. Again, not the point." Her control slipped momentarily. "Jackson, I built my life carefully, structured, safe for Emma. In 4 months, you've..." She gestured helplessly. "You've turned everything upside down." He moved closer, his expression intent. "You can't tell me you were happy being invisible, Olivia. I've seen you come alive these past months, not just professionally, in every way. Maybe being seen is too high a price." She met his gaze directly. "Dominic pulled me aside today, suggested I consider the optics of our relationship. Perhaps a transfer to another division would be best for everyone." Jackson's expression hardened. Dominic overstepped. "He has no authority. He's your friend. He's looking out for you," Olivia sighed. "And maybe he's right. Maybe we've been fooling ourselves thinking this could work." Outside her window, rain began to fall, echoing the night they'd first worked together. Jackson stepped forward, closing the distance between them. His hands gently framed her face, thumbs brushing her cheekbones. "Listen to me," he said softly. "I've built an empire by seeing value where others don't. I spent years accumulating power and wealth and influence, and none of it has meant as much to me as the moment you smile when I enter room." His voice roughened. "I'm not giving that up because of gossip or corporate politics or even well-meaning friends." Olivia allowed herself to lean into his touch to believe. Then Emma's sleepy voice called from the hallway. "Mom, is everything okay?" Reality crashed back. Olivia stepped away from Jackson, composing herself. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Mr. Hayes just stopped by to discuss work." Jackson's face revealed his hurt at the formal address, but he recovered quickly, smiling at Emma. "I was just leaving. Sorry to disturb your sleep, Commander Emma." The nickname made Emma smile despite her sleepiness. "It's okay. Are you coming to my birthday on Saturday?" The innocent question hung in the air, laying bare the complexity of their situation. Emma had grown attached to Jackson, his presence. In their lives already forming roots Olivia hadn't fully acknowledged. "We'll talk about that tomorrow," Olivia said gently.
"Back to bed now."
After Emma reluctantly returned to her room, Jackson moved toward the door. "I should go." "Yes," Olivia agreed, though everything in her wanted him to stay. to continue fighting for what they'd begun to build. But the image of Emma's face seeing those photos remained too raw. At the threshold, Jackson turned back. "I meant what I said, Olivia. All of it." He reached for her hand, pressing something into her palm before leaving. After the door closed, opened her hand to find a small, smooth stone one Emma had given him weeks ago from her rock collection. On it, Emma had painted a wobbly star. That he had kept it, carried it with him, spoke volumes that words couldn't express. Olivia clutched the stone, torn between protecting what she had built and risking everything for what might be possible. Breaking point, the Meridian Enterprises Charity Gala transformed the Metropolitan Museum into a glittering showcase of wealth and influence. Olivia stood at the periphery, feeling like an anthropologist observing an exotic tribe. Designer dress Jackson had sent to her apartment, which she'd initially refused. Then, reluctantly accepted when Emma declared it princess-worthy. She felt conspicuously out of place. "You look stunning," Jackson murmured, appearing at her side, with 2 champagne flutes. In his tailored tuxedo, he moved through the space with the easy confidence of someone born to privilege, though Olivia knew his origins were as humble as her own. "I look like someone playing dress-up," she replied, accepting the champagne. "The board members' wives have been staring at me since we arrived." "Let them stare," he said, his hand finding the small of her back. "They're just jealous. I'm with the most intelligent person in the room." 6 months into their relationship, Jackson had insisted on making their connection public, professionally and personally. No more hiding, no more fuel for gossip. Olivia had agreed with reservation. It's uncertain how corporate visibility would affect her carefully constructed life with Emma. Across the room, Victoria Huntington held court among senior executives, her crimson gown a stark contrast to Olivia's. Midnight blue. When their eyes met, Victoria's smile was razor-sharp. "She's been unusually friendly with Dominic tonight," Jackson observed, following Olivia's gaze. "Share a common interest in separating us," Olivia replied dryly. "Makes for a good conversation." Since the photos had appeared, Olivia had weathered increasingly obvious workplace hostility. Projects mysteriously reassigned, meeting invitations accidentally missed. Critical information shared with everyone but her. Jackson's support was unwavering, but his intervention only fueled resentment. "Ms. Palmer." Dominic Warner approached, champagne in hand, and Victoria trailing elegantly behind him. Quite a step up from financial analysis to these rarefied heights, isn't it? Before Olivia could respond, Jackson intervened. "Olivia earned her place here long before we became involved, Dom. Her analysis saved the company millions during the Malaysian crisis." "Of course," Dominic said smoothly. "Remarkable timing, finding such ... talent. Just when you needed it." Victoria laughed lightly, laying a manicured hand on Jackson's arm. "Jackson always did have excellent timing. Remember that venture in Dubai? Pulled out 2 weeks before the market collapsed? Absolute prescience." The proprietary way she touched him. The shared history implicit in her words, Olivia felt the weight of all she didn't know about Jackson's world. Years of connections, experiences, and relationships she could never fully understand or belong to. "If you'll excuse me," Olivia said quietly, "I need some air." She made her way to a balcony overlooking the museum gardens, breathing deeply in the cool night air. The city lights sparkled beyond, beautiful and indifferent. She thought of Emma, sleeping over at her friend Zoe's house, blissfully unaware. Of her mother's internal struggle, Jackson found her minutes later. Dominic was out of line. Told him it's not just Dominic. Olivia interrupted. "It's all of this." She gestured toward the gala. "I'm not made for this world, Jackson. I never will be. You don't have to be made for it. You transform it by being yourself." She turned to face him, really looked at the man who had unexpectedly claimed her heart. "Do you know what Emma asked me yesterday? She wanted to know if we were moving to your house because her friend Zoe said rich people don't live in apartments like ours." Jackson hesitated. "We could, move in together. There's more than enough room, and Emma would love the garden. The commute would be shorter for both of us." It's not. Olivia sighed in frustration. "You're missing the point. Emma's world is changing too fast. I spent years creating stability for her, And now everything's shifting. School parents treat her differently. Teachers ask about you instead of her schoolwork. Our neighbor Mrs. Hernandez shows her gossip columns. With our pictures, we can manage this, Jackson insisted, moving closer. Together. Can we? Because from where I stand, I'm failing at everything. My work is compromised by rumors. My daughter is confused. And her voice caught. I'm losing myself in your orbit, Jackson. It's becoming an accessory to your life rather than living my own. He looked genuinely stricken. That's never what I wanted. I know, but intention doesn't change reality. She removed her earrings, borrowed from the company's jewelry sponsor for the evening, and placed them in his palm. I need to step back. For Emma. For myself. Olivia, please, can figure this out. Was real fear in his voice now. Something she'd never heard before. Tell me what you need. What she needed was simple and impossible, to love him without consequence, to integrate their worlds without losing herself, to give Emma stability within their relationship. The complexity overwhelmed her. I need time, she finally said. Space to think clearly, without your gravity pulling me along. He searched her face, then nodded once, a sharp, military gesture at odds with the emotion in his eyes. All right, time. But this isn't over, Olivia. What we have, it's worth fighting for. She nearly broke then. Nearly threw herself into his arms and abandoned all caution. Instead, she removed the delicate bracelet he'd given her for her birthday and pressed it into his hand alongside the earrings. Keep this safe for me, she whispered, allowing herself one last touch of his face before walking away. The following Monday, Olivia's resignation letter sat on Jackson's desk when he arrived. Beside it lay a small note. Thank you for seeing me. Now I need to see myself clearly again. She didn't answer his calls, didn't respond to his messages, threw herself into job applications and Emma's endovier school activities, told herself the hollow feeling in her chest would eventually subside. 2 weeks later, Emma looked up from her homework with innocent perceptiveness. You miss Mr. Jackson, don't you? Like how I miss Sparkles when she ran away, except Sparkles was just a hamster and Mr. Jackson is your special person? Out of the mouths of babes. It's complicated, sweetie. Emma considered this with 8-year-old seriousness. Dad leaving was complicated too, but you said sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices when they love someone. Olivia froze. Ish. Is different, Em? Why? Because you're the one leaving instead of being left. The question, so simple and devastating, cut through Olivia's carefully constructed rationalizations. Was she running from possibility because she feared being abandoned again? Had her determination to protect Emma become an excuse to protect herself from vulnerability? That night, as rain lashed against the windows in an echo of their beginning, Olivia finally allowed herself to cry for what she might have thrown away. Genuine Reflections. Jackson Hayes sat alone in his expansive home office, surrounded by evidence of his success and utterly miserable. The acquisition documents before him, once the focal point of his ambition now, seemed hollow without someone to share the triumph. 1 month since Olivia's resignation. For weeks, 3 days, in approximately 7 hours since he'd last heard her laugh. Not that he was counting. Thunder rumbled outside, a summer storm breaking the heat that had gripped the city for days. On his desk sat the small painted rock Emma had given him, now serving as a paperweight for reports he couldn't focus on. His phone buzzed with Dominic's name. He ignored it, as he had most social overtures lately. His friends had noticed the change in him, the increased intensity at work, the absence from usual social circles. Victoria had made her interest clear during the gala, but he'd felt nothing. How could he? When his thoughts remained fixed on a modest apartment across town, where a financial analyst and her astronomy-loving daughter had somehow become the center of his universe, the intercom buzzed. Sir, his housekeeper's voice sounded apologetic. There's a young girl at the gate. She says her name is Emma Palmer, and it's an emergency involving her mother. Jackson was on his feet immediately, heart pounding. Let her in right away. Minutes later, a soaking wet Emma stood in his foyer, rainwater pooling around her sneakers. A startled Mrs. Peterson was attempting to wrap her in a towel. Emma, what happened? Was your mother? Jackson knelt to her level, checking for signs of injury or distress. "Mom's fine," Emma said, her voice steady, despite her chattering teeth. "She just doesn't know I'm here." Relief and confusion battled for dominance. "You came here alone?" "Did you even?" "I took the bus and then walked from the stop. I memorized your address from Mom's contacts before she deleted them." She lifted her chin with a determination that painfully echoed her mother's. "Mom's been crying every night. She thinks I can't hear, but I can." The simple statement hit Jackson with physical force, while the image of Olivia crying alone made his chest constrict. "Mrs. Peterson, would you make some hot chocolate for our guest? And find some dry clothes?" Once the housekeeper departed, he refocused. "On Emma. Your mother must be frantic. We need to call her." "Not yet," Emma insisted. "First you have to fix it." "Fix what exactly?" "Whatever made Mom so sad. She misses you, but she's too stubborn to say so. Like when she pretends broccoli tastes good, even though we both know it's gross." Despite everything, Jackson found himself smiling. "Relationships are complicated, Emma. Adult relationships even more so." Emma's expression was unimpressed. "It because Mom's not rich and fancy like your other girlfriends." "Because she says that doesn't matter, but I think she thinks it does." Her perception was uncomfortably accurate. "Your mom is the most extraordinary woman I've ever known," Jackson said honestly. "Her background has nothing to do with why we're apart." "Then why?" "How to explain complex adult fears to a child?" "Sometimes people get scared when something matters too much. They worry about what might go wrong instead of focusing on what's going right." Emma considered this. "Like when I wouldn't try the high dive because I thought I'd belly flop? But then you said the only way to know was to try, and it turned out to be my favorite thing." Jackson remembered that day at his club pool, Olivia laughing as he coached. A nervous Emma through her first dive. The memory ached. "Something like that? Yes. So you need to tell Mom to try the high dive again," Emma concluded with perfect 8-year-old logic. Before Jackson could respond, his phone rang with Olivia's number. He answered immediately. "Jackson, I'm sorry to call, but Emma's missing. And I'm terrified, and I didn't know who else." Her voice broke. "She's here," he said quickly. "She's safe."
What?
A bit wet from the rain, but perfectly fine. The silence was followed by a shaky exhale. "She's with you? How did she even get there?" "Public transportation and determination, apparently. She's having hot chocolate while her clothes dry. I'm coming to get her right now. I'll send my driver," Jackson offered. "The storm's getting worse." After giving her no choice but to accept, Jackson hung up and found Emma watching him intently. "Your mother's on her way. She was very worried." Emma nodded, unrepentant. "Are you going to tell her to try the high dive?" Jackson considered the precocious child before him, so like her mother in her directness. "I think that's a conversation your mom and I need to have privately. But thank you for caring enough to intervene." 40 minutes later, Olivia arrived. Rainwater dripping from her hastily thrown-on jacket, eyes wild with residual fear. When she saw Emma safe in the kitchen, wearing what appeared to be one of Jackson's t-shirts as a makeshift dress while sipping hot chocolate, the relief on her face was palpable. "Emma Charlotte Palmer, you are in more trouble than you can possibly imagine," she said, though her fierce hug contradicted her stern tone. "Worth it," Emma mumbled into her mother's shoulder. Jackson hung back, drinking in the sight of Olivia. She looked tired, with shadows under her eyes that hadn't been there before. Still beautiful. Still the woman who had crashed into his life and changed everything. After ensuring Emma was truly unharmed, Olivia finally looked at Jackson. Complicated emotion in her eyes mirrored his own internal landscape: longing, uncertainty, lingering, hurt, undeniable connection. "I'm so sorry about this," she said formally. "I can't believe she imposed on you like this." "It wasn't an imposition," he replied quietly. "It was ... illuminating." Emma looked between them with transparent hope. When neither adult continued, she sighed dramatically. "Mom, I'm going to go change back into my clothes now. You two should talk about the high dive." As she skipped away, Olivia looked questioningly at Jackson. "An analogy," he explained. about fear preventing us from discovering something wonderful. Flash of vulnerability crossed Olivia's face. Jackson, I've been miserable, he interrupted, unable to maintain pretense. Completely, utterly miserable without you and Emma in my life. I've tried to respect your decision to give you the space you asked for. But I need you to know that nothing has changed for me. He hesitated, then pushed forward. I still love you, both of you. The words hung between them, the first time either had spoken them aloud. Olivia's eyes filled. I took a job with Westbrook Financial, she said, seemingly changing the subject. Senior analyst position. Better pay, flexible hours for Emma. The news felt like a body blow. Congratulations, he managed. They're lucky to have you. Point is, she continued, moving closer, I'll no longer be your employee. No power imbalance. No corporate politics. Just two people trying to figure out if they can build something real together. Hope sparked in his chest. Are you saying I'm saying I've been equally miserable? Olivia admitted. I told myself I was protecting Emma, protecting myself. But the truth is, I was just afraid. Afraid of how much I love you and how completely it terrifies me. Jackson closed the distance between them, his hands gently framing her face as they had the night she'd asked for space. Being terrified together is better than being miserable apart, don't you think? Her smile was tremulous, but real. Emma seems to think so. Smart kid, he murmured, brushing away a tear from her cheek with his thumb. She gets it from her mother, Olivia whispered, just before his lips found hers. From the doorway, Emma watched with satisfied approval as the two people she loved most in the world finally got it right. Next mission, convince them that a pet snake would complete their family perfectly. Outside, the rain began to ease, clouds parting to reveal stars above the city, countless possibilities shining in the darkness, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to look up.